Cardinals fans, I don't know how to tell you this, but you just went a whole weekend where Pedro Pages was basically your entire offense, and you won 2 out of 3 against the Cubs. We'll talk about it coming up on B-Shape Daily. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of B-Shape Daily. Brenden Schaeffer here with you. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. What is going on with the Cardinals offense? Apparently, you can go a whole weekend in Chicago at Wrigley Field, have your third string catcher, essentially, be your only offensive contributor, and can win 2 out of 3 games. I don't know how you do it. I don't recommend it. Don't try this at home, kids. But the Cardinals just did it. Pedro Pages with the home run swing on Sunday, his second of the weekend, his second of his career, and it was enough for the Cardinals to win on Sunday, 2-1 in the Roku game at Wrigley Field. As they take 2 of 3 from the Cubs, they get back to 500, 35-35, and they just keep on trudging along. I wonder if this week is the week where they finally get above 500 for the first time since early April. If you look on the schedule at the opposition, the answer to that should be yes. But stranger things have happened. It seems that sometimes when the Cardinals play those perceived easier teams, they don't end up doing very well. White Sox series may ring a bell. They're going to Miami to take on the Marlins, and then by Thursday, they'll be in Birmingham, Alabama, taking on the San Francisco Giants in a game at Rickwood Field. That's the home of the Birmingham Barons back in the day of the Negro League, and the Cardinals taking on the Giants there on Thursday. I have no idea what to expect. I will be down there covering it all for KMOV. So that's what's going on. But how about these Cardinals? I mean, they're hanging in there, guys. I know it's not pretty right now, and you should not be able to go to Chicago for a 3-game weekend series, score 6 total runs, and come away with 2 wins, but they did it. I mean, they win 3-0 on Friday. Thank you, Pages. They lose 5-1 on Saturday. Yeah, didn't score. Couldn't get to Imanaga. We get it. They win 2-1 on Sunday. Thank you, Pages. And that's enough to win the series, and the Cardinals are still in second place in the Central. Let me know. Drop your comments below how you're feeling about this Cardinals team. I'm not going to go super long today. I know I say that a lot, but this time I really do mean it. And you'll see. You're looking right now at the length of this video going, what's going on with B-Shape Daily today? Why is it so short? It's Father's Day. And my wife said, hey, so because it's Father's Day, and I am a dad, do you get to take a little bit of a reprieve and kind of take the night off of work? No, I don't, because the Cardinals played the Cubs this weekend, and we're talking about it on B-Shape Daily. If the Cardinals had played the Nationals, or if they had played the Marlins, or if they had played the White Sox, or if they had played the Mariners, I probably wouldn't have done a podcast tonight. But we're going to jump on here briefly, though it may be, and talk about this Cardinals series win and the game today. As I want to hear specifically from Cardinals fans what you guys think right now of Miles Mikolas, because I've been sort of beating the drum a little bit in recent weeks to tell you, hey, don't look now. Don't look at the ERA because it's going to tell you a lie. But Miles Mikolas has actually been pretty darn competitive over the past, it was 7, and then it was 8 starts, and then it's 9, and now it's up to 10 that Miles Mikolas, outside of one clunker, one bad start out of his last 10, Miles Mikolas has been really strong for the Cardinals. And even the ERA is going to be deceptive because it's just a shade under 4 over that 10-game stretch. But also during that stretch, Miles Mikolas has not had but one game where he's been essentially worse than a quality start, because he's had 4 times where he's gone 6 innings and given up exactly 3 earned runs, which nobody is throwing a parade for because that's still a 4.5 ERA. However, that's been the lower end of the outings that he's provided for the Cardinals over the 10-game stretch. There's been one that was brutal. 4 innings, gave up 6 runs, 9 hits, all earned runs. That was against the Mets, though, on May 7th. It's been almost a month and a half. By the time Mikolas starts again next weekend against the Giants, that will have been a full month and a half since the clunker and the last one that he had. Since then, he has given the Cardinals a chance to win every time he's come out to pitch, and more often than not has been able to do that over that span. The Cardinals are 5-2 over the last 7 starts by Miles Mikolas, including this afternoon at Wrigley, and today he was really solid. It doesn't have to be flashy with this guy, but when he's on, it looks kind of like it looked today. 6 1/3, gave up a run, only 4 hits, didn't walk anybody. Yeah, the 4 hits, whatever. That's pretty good for 6 1/3 innings. Pitched into the 7th. Last time out, he went 7. And today struck out 5. Just the 1 run, not even a homer. Normally, it's a solo shot that gets him. 91 pitches, and they took him out of there in the 7th inning. Fernandez came in to finish that inning. It was dicey. It was dicey, no question about it. But ultimately, able to limit the damage there to just 1 run in the 7th, which was ultimately charged to Mikolas. And the Cardinals escaped from there. Kittredge had a little bit of an adventure in the 8th, but not too bad. And in the 9th inning, Ryan Helsley came on for his league-leading 24th save, despite that he walked a couple of batters. Look, Ryan Helsley's going through it right now. He is not at 100% in terms of confidence. That's very clear in watching him. And yet, the Cardinals have a closer on the fritz. They have an offense that has just absolutely been useless outside of a couple of spots here and there. Today, 9 hits, 3 walks, plenty of base runners. What do? You leave 9 on base. You score 2 runs. You hardly get anybody even in scoring position. The Cardinals went 1 for 3 with Risp. It's almost a hallmark of this Cardinals team at this point that they're going to get somebody on base damn near every inning. They're going to put somebody on first. But that's usually going to be about it. They have scattered these hits in a way that seems almost impossible to not be able to produce more runs, but they haven't. They scored 6 runs in a 3-game series over the weekend. They won 2 games. That's a pitching staff that's carrying this Cardinals team right now. We're still waiting for the offense to emerge. It's mid-June. I feel that we've been talking about this all season long, but aren't we still kind of waiting on the offense to see what it can be capable of doing? I'll give you the rundown. Tough day for Mason Wynn. He was the DH to start this game. He ended up coming in to play shortstop to finish it after an injury to Brandon Crawford. I believe it was just cramps. Hopefully it was ultimately the case there for Crawford. He played well, had a double, had a couple of walks, scored on the home run by Pages. Yeah, Pedro Pages hit another home run. Isn't that something? He just continues to do meaningful things for this Cardinals club. What a weekend he had. His parents in attendance. They interviewed his dad, Edgar Pages, on the broadcast, the television broadcast with Roku. That was really cool to see. It always seems like meaningful stories emerge from Father's Day in MLB. And to have Pedro's dad in the crowd this weekend, have him hit 2 homers, have him hit 1 on Father's Day, have it be the game winner that holds up, and for him to catch the games that he did this weekend too. Like, we talked about it yesterday, how Pedro Pages is going to be catching at least 2 out of every 5, maybe 3 out of every 5 starts for this Cardinal rotation. I would say it's not anything against Devon Herrera because I think he does a nice job outside of the throwing arm, but that ends up being a huge deal. Even Pages had a couple of times this weekend where the Cubs were looking to take advantage, usually more so off the pitcher than him, but he would drop the ball and not be able to complete a throw. It seemed like usually when that happened, it wasn't going to be a play at second anyway, but that happened a couple of times to Pages. I just think the Cardinals are in a better spot defensively with Pedro Pages behind the plate right now than Herrera. And Herrera can make some strides. I'm not writing him off for his career, but I think there are some things that he still needs to work on. Pages has absolutely dialed it in, and you credit the pitchers because Mikolas pitched well. The bullpen did its job. But for the Cardinals to score 6 runs in a weekend series and come away with a win in the series, that happens because of really high-quality pitching. And during the 2 games the Cardinals won, you had Pages doing a really high-quality job behind the plate as well. He caught all 3 games. I think he is the primary catcher right now until Contreras comes back, although we hear Contreras may be on a rehab assignment sooner rather than later, so it may not be all that long before he comes back and sort of displaces what Pages is doing. But how about that? You play the Cubs. Everybody wants to beat the Cubs. Everybody in my comment section on YouTube wants to beat the dang Cubs. And for the Cardinals to take 2 of 3 on the road, get back to 500, honestly, grab a little bit of distance in the division because the Cardinals are 6.5 behind Milwaukee, but everybody else is 8 or 8.5 back. The Cubs are 4 games below 500 now because of the Cardinals taking advantage of this weekend series. The Pirates and Reds are 3 games below at 34 and 37. The Cardinals are a game and a half clear right now of both those teams, and they're 2 up on the Cubs. It's not much. It's not breathing room, but it is the standings, and you can feel good about where the Cardinals are, all things considered. I wouldn't feel good about where the Cardinals are offensively. As a team offensively, they've got a lot of work to do. You get the home run by Pages. It happens early in this game, and that was pretty much it. Not just pretty much, it was it in terms of the Cardinals scoring in this ball game. They score 2 runs in the second on the homer, and then that ends up holding up. The 7th is all you give up. I thought in the 5th inning, I think it was, when there was a play at second base, Crawford threw to the bag instead of throwing to first, and the Cubs ended up reviewing. I saw the angle initially and thought, oh dear, that guy's safe. Craig Counsell had to make a split decision on whether to challenge it. I don't think he got quick enough word back from his coaching staff on whether that's going to be one that'll hold up on replay. And ultimately, he just put the earphones up and said, we're going to go for this on replay because it's a run if we do. And he took his time, man. It doesn't really seem like Brandon Crawford has a fast speed to much of what he does. And that play at second was, I don't have to make the throw all the way to first. I'm going to try to get the guy at second. It was way closer than you want it to be. I truly did think he was safe upon the first replay, but I was at the Post Sports Bar in Lake St. Louis watching on the outdoor patio, had a bit of a glare on the screen, and so I was trying to zoom in and see what was going on there. The Post is great, by the way, if you've been there. Not a sponsor, would like him to be. They are a sponsor, actually, of Hot Take Central, though, so we always like to support them, and I'm involved in that radio show on 590 The Fan. I just thought he was safe, and I'm like, this is going to be a turning point in this game, and they didn't overturn it. A lot of people on Twitter seem to think pretty confidently that he was out, so I'll take y'all's word for it. I didn't see it as cleanly as maybe some others did. But that was a spot for Miles Mikolas where it's like, okay, you escaped a really dangerous spot and see where it goes from here. He was able to get through, man. He was able to get into the 7th inning. Bullpen-wise, the Cardinals, I mean, things are going to happen. We obviously broke down the Andre Palante situation from Saturday. Go back and check it out on your podcast feed if you want, on the YouTube feed as well. And I thought Ollie Marmol took him out of the game too early, but that meant you rode the bullpen pretty hard in the game on Saturday. And then Sunday, Fernandez, Kittredge, Helsley end up being able to come out and close the final 2 2/3 innings of this game. Cardinals get the win, man. It was not easy. The weekend was not easy, and it never is going to be easy when your offense doesn't produce. Like, we still can look at this offense and go, what's going on here? What is it that needs to happen to get this Cardinal offense on track? It might be different personnel. It might be different people in the lineup. Jameson Taillon's a good pitcher. He's got a 3.08 ERA on the season, but for the game, he gave up the Pages homer, and that was about it. And then Smiley has turned himself into a solid reliever. He pitched a couple of good innings, and Keegan Thompson comes in for the 9th. Cardinals have not been able to get a ton off of the Cubs bullpen in this series. But they scored 6 runs. Not in the game, in the series. That's just not a recipe typically for a Cardinals team to be able to win a series. And especially not in this environment, especially not against this team, the rivalry. But I think you benefit from the win conditions on Friday and Saturday. Pages, I think, benefited from the conditions today because I'm not sure his ball gets out if it's not maybe being helped a little bit by the wind, and that's okay. But it's just very strange right now to see the Cardinals where they are, have them be at 500, have them be in a playoff spot, and have basically universally Cardinals fans feel like they're not in a very good spot right now, feel very down about the team and lack that confidence that this Cardinal team can go on a run. But I think we all see the same things. I don't blame you guys for feeling that way. The offense is a problem. It's a great thing that you can be struggling the way you are offensively, and I'm still going to say that Ryan Helsley is struggling too. He's going through it, even though he has not blown a save since this period over the last couple of weeks where it's not been coming easy to him. In the fastball, it's not the velo so much as it is the command. It's just not been consistent. So during a stretch like that, for Ryan Helsley to have not blown a save, he's had the one game on Tuesday against Pittsburgh where he gave it up in the ninth inning, but it wasn't the save situation. And he has kind of gone into late career Jason Isringhausen mode, where every time base runners are getting on, every time he's having to fight out of danger. But in fairness, you're in a one-run game. You're in these close games, which Helsley wouldn't be involved in the game if it wasn't close. But you're in these tight spots because the offense has not been able to find their footing and find that game where you can really just kind of let it fly and you don't have to worry about it as much as far as the pitching staff having no margin for making a mistake. If they make a mistake right now, these games change. The outcome changes because of it. The offense has just not done enough. And you look at batting average, they're up to 19th in baseball at 236. It's not great, but middle of the pack, 15th is 243. You're like a good series away from being basically middle of the pack in batting average. They don't hit for much power, so they're a little bit lower on OPS at 675. Their slug, I would bet, is close to bottom 5 in the league. I'm taking a look now. No, it's actually not. 371 is 20th in baseball. So right around bottom 10. On base, they're 24th at 304. Haven't been drawing as many walks recently. So they're still a bottom half offense, but they're no longer a bottom 5 offense, except in the one category that matters, runs scored. 269 over 70 games. And you say, well, Brenden, others have played more games than them. You're right. The Toronto Blue Jays are 26th in baseball in runs scored. By the way, you see some like prominent teams down at the bottom of this run scored list in baseball this year. The Blue Jays, for them to be offensively 26th in runs, that doesn't seem right. But they've scored 278, 9 more runs than the Cardinals, but they've only played one additional game. The Cardinals aren't averaging 9 runs a game. So I don't feel they're averaging fewer than 4 runs a game. So I don't feel bad to suggest that the Cardinals probably aren't catching the Blue Jays once they get that extra game in. Tampa's at 279, 10 runs ahead, played 2 additional games. Mariners have played 4 additional games, but they're also 19 runs ahead. Cardinals might score 19 over their next 4 games, but you're falling in about 25th or so is where you belong based on the games played and the runs scored. Offensively, that's an issue. Now, like I said, batting average, you're now top 20, so you're inching your way up. OPS, you're like tied for 21st. Could be a lot worse. At times this year, they were a lot worse. But for the Cardinals, the real problem now does seem to be with runners in scoring position. Today, just 1 for 3. Didn't get many in scoring position, right, this weekend. But the Cardinals are hitting 215 for 27th best in the league in average with runners in scoring position, and their OPS is 28th. The White Sox, the Athletics, are the only teams worse than the Cardinals in OPS with RISP. 613, a far cry from even the team one spot ahead, which is the Pirates at 661. The Cardinals have a clutch hitting problem in terms of when they get guys on, when they get ducks on the pond, they don't bring them in. The Cardinals have had clutch moments late in games. They might hit a surprise homer to steal a win. They've done things like that, but they have not consistently been good with runners in scoring position. And if they would even be as good as they are with RISP, as they are as a team in general, about 20th, 21st offensively, they would not be 27th, 28th in runs. They'd be right around 21st. And you'd say, correctly so, hey, that's not very good. But it would be a lot better, and they'd be 3-4 games above 500 because they're losing close ones and they're winning close ones. The Cardinals win so many close games because it's their only way to win. It's the only option because they don't score. They do not have these outburst games. It feels like a hard thing to ask for because scoring a bunch of runs is not easy at the MLB level. But the good teams do it, and they do it once or twice a week because it takes pressure off the bullpen. The Cardinal formula to win games it doesn't feel sustainable. even though the bullpen on this team is really good, and look, I know some Cardinals fans are hesitant to be willing to give credit where it's due because you're frustrated about the way the season is going. And I understand that because it's still not where it needs to be. Look, for everybody that says, oh, Brendan's a simp, he only says good things about... No, it's not where it needs to be, but it's within striking distance of where it needs to be. And I think if you have a combination of three things, injury luck going your way, which is not a given, but we do hear about a lot of guys rehabbing or guys who are about to be rehabbing. So there is a world in which the Cardinals could end up on the plus side of some of these injuries sooner rather than later. But that's one. Two is John Mozeliak figuring out what the needs are and aggressively filling them sooner rather than later. I feel like I've been saying this since the beginning of June, so maybe they'll get away with this not being something that has to happen. Like maybe a month from now, we'll still be looking at the Cardinals around 500 and nobody else in the NL will have emerged. And so we can say, hey, 500's good enough. Now it's the trade deadline, though, so make your team better because others are going to do the same. And maybe then John Mozeliak will. But I still believe that within the next few weeks, it would benefit the Cardinals to be scouring the markets to make some moves. Now, at the time we said this a couple of weeks ago, it was like, dude, the bullpen's got to find a right-handed reliever, and maybe they're resolving that from within. Maybe Roycroft is a piece that he's got stuff that plays. Maybe Gallegos comes back. I know they're probably going to give him a shot to come back. If he's not effective, they need to be willing to cut bait quickly, just because I don't think you want to be wasting too much time and honestly too many wins left on the table, which is what could happen if they give Gio that spot back and put him back into game situations where it's in the balance and he doesn't come through. It may just be a tough decision that's needed at that point. But I think you could look offensively as well at some of the trades that should be made that could at the very minimum beef up this bench, because the bench just does not have anything to speak of right now in terms of late game punch. And maybe a Dylan Carlson comes around. Maybe Brandon Crawford. Again, we're kind of dogging Brandon Crawford, and hopefully he's okay injury-wise after today. But he had a double and 2 walks. Offensively, his numbers have been on the rise, but it does feel like this bench still has some weaknesses and could stand to be improved. So that's number 2, is Mozeliak being willing to explore the trades that could be out there and then executing them. And then number 3 is simply the guys in the lineup that have to be your dogs have got to be your dogs. They need Paul Goldschmidt to be good, and he has been not good this year. His numbers are bad. Paul Goldschmidt is a 646 OPS, and he went 2 for 4 today. He was the only Cardinal with 2 hits. But he has not lived up to number 3 hitter in the lineup. And it's just one of those situations, as we've talked about, where I don't think they can reasonably move him because you're not going to drop him down, as I talked about with the line. Go back to listen to yesterday's video. The lineup I gave that once you get Contreras and Nootbaar back, and Edmund even as well, I think it has Goldie batting 7th, potentially. And I honestly think that can work out for this team. But for now, there's nobody begging to be that guy in the heart of this order. And so by default, it almost remains Paul Goldschmidt. Gorman's got a 729 OPS. He's batting cleanup usually. Okay. Arenado's been bumped to number 5, but his OPS is sub 700. Donovan's sub 700. Crawford's almost to 600 after a good game today. And then you had Pages and Ciani in the 500s at the bottom. I think Pages was probably low 500s before the homer today. Now he's at 555. He also reached base via walk. Cardinals had 3 walks. It was Crawford twice and Pages once. Bottom of the order, getting it done. Ciani, I just don't think he's a regular starter, but I think he's a good 4th outfielder. He was in there today, he had a hit, but also had a spot where he was trying to advance the runner from first on a sacrifice and couldn't get the bunt down. So certainly I think there is room to improve upon the daily performance from Ciani. I think he's a good bench outfielder, but if that guy's in your lineup, suddenly your lineup's worse and then your bench is worse. That trickle-down effect. The Cardinals need, and maybe it's as simple as the injured guys coming back, but you can't count on that because what happens when a couple of them come back, but then 2 more hit the shelf? I think the depth of the organization has been tested, and if they're serious on urgency with winning and trying to get to the postseason and then maybe doing damage once they get there, which a lot of people I've seen say, it's not possible. You might win 82 games and get in the playoffs, but what kind of accomplishment is that when you're about to be eradicated in the first round? Hey, guys, the Diamondbacks made the World Series last year. I know that it doesn't feel like this Cardinals team has the juice right now, and they probably don't, let's be honest. But with a few roster moves and maybe a couple of trades and a stark improvement from a couple of guys who haven't done it to this point in the year but have it over the course of their career been a trend and been consistent, I don't think it's crazy to say this Cardinal team could win a 3-game series, could win 2 out of 3. They just did it to the Cubs, and the Cubs aren't a great team. They're 4 games below 500 right now after what the Cardinals did to them. But they're an okay team. They've done it to the teams like the Orioles. Like, they swept Baltimore. They're not better than Baltimore, but over a 2 out of 3, anything can happen, and it just might take Sonny Gray going nuclear for a day. And then maybe it's Kyle Gibson. Maybe it's Miles Mikolas. I think he's working his way back into a conversation where it might not excite anybody, but if you just like close your eyes and envision, is there a world in which Miles Mikolas goes 6 1/3 of 1-run baseball with 4 strikeouts in a playoff game? He's got the moxie, and it's all trending in a very positive direction. Do I think I would predict it? Would I feel comfortable with him as the number 2? No. But is it impossible? Can I rule it out? Not really. I think what tanks the Cardinals if they do get to October is the offense right now, more so than the pitching. I think you could have good performances from a number of guys. I would still probably order it Sonny, Kyle Gibson, and maybe Miles as 3. Not a lot of faith right now in Lance Lynn in terms of like a playoff rotation, but we'll see. It's all about ebb and flow, and guys are going to be feeling differently at different times. But I can't sit here and say, no, this isn't worth pursuing. I've had people comment and say Cardinals should sell at the deadline. It's like, look, they're in a wild card spot today, and they've been playing badly in terms of their offensive production. So knowing that they haven't really hit their stride offensively, maybe this is as good as it gets offensively. Maybe this is their stride. But understanding that there is maybe something left in the tank that we haven't seen from this team based on the pedigree of the guys in the lineup. And look, if they win 83 games by just grinding it out and it's ugly for 162, and then they turn it on in October, anything could happen. What Cardinals fans are rightfully frustrated by is the notion that we can't reasonably expect anything to happen. If you were in the projection game, you wouldn't project it, but it's not impossible. And because of how bad last year was, I think that it is owed to Cardinals fans for this organization to try to at least sneak into October. And then maybe Sonny Gray has a great day and he strikes out 12 and you accidentally win 1-0. And then suddenly you're a game away from the LDS, right? And so that to me should still be where the Cardinals' heads are at. No, I'm not just trading Goldie for whatever I could get at the deadline because he's on an expiring contract. Personally, he's worth more to you than he's worth in the market, because whatever you're getting for him is not going to last much longer than what his contract situation is at the way he's performing. If he suddenly turns it on, if somehow he hits a dozen homers over the next month and the team falls off to where it's clear they're out of it, that's a different conversation. But those two things happening simultaneously seems pretty unlikely. But if it happened, then I would say, yeah, you have to consider it because you could probably get a nice piece or two for Goldie. But for now, it's not even on my radar. Arenado, kind of the same thing. He's not an expiring contract, but I just don't know how much value is really out there. Ryan Helsley, yeah, I think he'd have value for sure, even though he is kind of going through it right now. His ERA is still 2.5, and he's also got another year of team control. But I'm just not doing those things when I am not only within striking distance of a playoff spot, I'm physically in one as of now. So I get it, Cardinals fans, credit to a lot of you, because those saying it, you're not saying it without having thought through this. Your take, and I understand it, is I'm tired of being in the middle. I want to see the Cardinals get to the pinnacle again, and if it takes a couple of lean years where you sell off expiring assets to recoup future assets, and you work and you grind and you draft and you develop to get the Cardinals back to where they're supposed to be, the pinnacle of the sport, then there are Cardinal fans out there who would say, I'll make that trade because I'm tired of being in the middle. And I respect that. I think it's owed because there's other Cardinals fans out there that don't feel like you, It's not really the ones who are going to comment on a YouTube video or social media, but there's a lot of Cardinals fans out there who just say, can we just get this team back to the playoffs? I spend money, I invest time, I want to see them in. Maybe they'll accidentally win a series. I think those Cardinals fans probably do outnumber the ones that want to see strategic arbitrage and moves at the deadline that may not be for today but are for tomorrow down the road. It's a noble goal. It's a worthy goal. I don't think it's where the Cardinals are at right now when you're in a playoff spot. So we're going to spend most of our time talking about the ways this team can improve and whether or not they've got it in them. The offense, if it changes on a dime overnight, which it probably won't because we've got a sample size. We're past Flag Day. There are things this team still has to improve upon, and it's got to come from somewhere, but we haven't seen the data to suggest it's on the way, right? We can be real about that. They might be a mid-pack at best, probably bottom half offense because the consistency has just been lacking. But if that's going on, and they're still right there in the mix, not only in the mix, but in a spot as of today, then I think it's incumbent upon the front office to add rather than think about the future and subtracting. They also are incentivized to do it because they need fans to be in the seats. They need to sell tickets. And it's not exciting for a lot of fans to say, well, how many ticket sales did they have this year? Because who cares? But that's the way they get some of their revenues, and it's a revenue stream they value, so they want to continue to be viable. They're not going to sell off pieces at the deadline if they're in this spot right on the cusp of a wild card. But you know what? You play a team like the Marlins this week, you got to beat that team. And the Giants are a team vying for a wild card. You got to beat that team. Cardinals, to me, next 6 games, you got to beat the Marlins 2 of 3 minimum. And I think if that's all you do, maybe 2 of 3 against the Giants would be appropriate. I think 4 of their next 6 is the benchmark I'll set. I didn't really do it on the road trip because after the homestand where they only won 4 of 7, I thought, all right, you're going to Wrigley. You know what that entails. Let's just see how it starts and how it goes from there. Well, they won the series. So now I think, yeah, you could split 3 and 3 in this next stretch. It's not a road trip in its entirety because you play 3 on the road at the Marlins, 1 on the road in Birmingham. That's really a home game technically, and then 2 more at home over the coming weekend. But even 3 and 3 plus a 2 and 1 at the Cubs, that's 5 and 4 over the 9 games, coming off of a 4 and 3. Like, they'll inch their way to 83 wins that direction. But if you can just maybe sweep the Marlins, maybe that different conversation can happen. And it can maybe embolden the front office to say, hey, let's actually aggressively buy and put this roster together to where even the Braves right now in the top wildcard spot they're not all that with their record. So let's go ahead and be a team that, hey, maybe we get that top wild card and host, because the top wild card team gets to host a playoff series. So there could be some benefit to that as well. They'd be the 4 seed, the 1 seed, and the 2 seed. They get buys. The 3 seed has to host a wild card round. The 4 seed, though, also gets to host one. I'm not saying that's particularly likely. I think the Braves will improve before they fall off the map. But even a team like the Dodgers has to deal with injuries. They lose Mookie Betts today and Yamamoto to a rotator strain. The Cardinals should be emboldened to go out and make moves to get better and win this year. That's what I think. Let me know what you think, Cardinals fans, in the comments below. Hit subscribe to this channel. We cover the Cardinals, and we do it every single day, all year long. Appreciate you guys who have joined along already for the ride. The link to channel memberships is in the description to this video, so check that out as well. But that'll do it for this edition of the show. We'll talk to you next time on Be Safe Daily. Peace.